Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I feel like it's been a little while since I have actually picked up my camera. Also, sorry for the lighting in here, it's gonna be all over the place because the sun is going in and out of the clouds. But I did want to start a new video today. I was thinking, you know what I haven't done in a little while? A good old-fashioned reading vlog. So, here we are. I'm picking my camera up and we're starting a reading vlog today. I don't know if it's just gonna be like a weekend reading vlog or if I'm gonna stretch it out to be an entire week or what. And I have no set TBR. I'm literally just mood reading. Currently, I am about 26 pages in to The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. So I guess that's what I'm starting off with today. I don't even know how to explain what this book is about, honestly. I actually had to go and look up a YouTube video for someone to kind of explain what's supposed to be going on. And I watched the spoiler-free review on this book from, I think his YouTube handle is Captured in Words. But he basically explained that this is the first book in a trilogy called the First Law Trilogy. And essentially this first one is really more of like a character development sort of setup book, but more like setup in terms of the characters. Apparently there's not a ton of world building in this one, so that can get a little bit confusing, but it's mostly to set up like the characters and their morals and learning about them. And then I guess the next two books in the series kind of go more into the plot side of things. But regardless, I've heard so many good things about it. I think it's got like 4.2 something stars on Goodreads. People do say that it's kind of more of a setup book, but not in a bad way. It's a setup book in the best way possible, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Like I said, I'm only like 26 pages in, so I really have no idea what's going on. I have only met two of the kind of main characters that the book surrounds, and even reading like the blurb on the back, I don't know what is actually supposed to happen in this book, and I don't, like I said, with the reviews that I watched, I don't know if there is necessarily anything that's supposed to happen in this book. I think the plot kind of takes a back seat in this book, and you just end up learning a lot about the characters moving forward. That being said, I'm going to get into reading here, and I feel like I don't even know how to do a reading vlog anymore. I guess I'll give you guys thoughts when I get to a point where I have thoughts. I don't know. Hello friends. So it is actually Monday afternoon. Obviously I didn't do any updates for you guys all weekend. So for that I apologize. But I actually ended up not really reading a ton over the weekend, so I didn't have anything to update on. Yesterday, Sunday, I went to the park with a couple of my friends and we just hung out because it was just a beautiful day outside. So I was busy socializing all day yesterday. But I did want to give a bit of an update now because I have done a little bit more reading today of The Blade Itself. I'm on page 119 now. I'm glad that I ended up seeing the review that said that there's not a whole lot of plot in this book. It's a lot of just character development, because if I didn't go into this book knowing that, at this point I'd probably be like, okay, when is something gonna happen? What's going on? Like, yeah, we're slowly getting to know the characters, but other than that, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what the like point is of this book, if that makes any sense. That's not to say that I don't like it. It's just I'm glad I had the right expectations going into it, because I think it could end up being good. I don't know. There's, how many pages are in it? I think there's like 500 and something pages. Yeah, it's 515 pages. So I still have like 400 pages left to go. Just wanted to give that little update. Other than that, I don't really have any like life updates to talk about, except for the fact that, and I don't know how much I want to like talk about this because it's not a for sure thing yet, but when Jesse and I went camping the other weekend in the Vancouver Island camping vlog, you'll see there is a very, very cute puppy dog in that vlog. His name is Todd. He's the little black and white border collie, and he was the cutest thing ever, and we absolutely fell in love with him. Jesse has been wanting to get a dog for quite some time, so we decided to ask our landlords if they would be okay with us getting a dog, and they said yes. So we actually reached out to the breeder from the dog, Todd. We actually reached out to his breeder to see if she had any upcoming litters, and she said she's just waiting to confirm if one of her female dogs is currently pregnant, and if she is, the puppies would be born in June and they'd be ready for us to get one in August. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Nothing's confirmed yet, obviously, because of that, but knock on wood, we might be getting a dog at the end of the summer. I'm 28, turning 29 this year, and Jesse is turning 31 this year, and we have no plans at this point to have kids. So our kids are like Simba and any other animals that we have. Like, that's what we want our children to be, is just fur babies. For me, this is just as exciting as someone having a kid. Like, I know it's not quite the same thing, but it's just as exciting for me. But hopefully more of that to come. Alright friends, I am about halfway through now. I think I'm just under halfway through. And something that I've realized is this is reminding me a lot of how I felt when I was reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, in the sense that I feel like it's one of those books where you really have no idea what's going on until the end, when everything is kind of getting wrapped up. Because, and I know I've said it a few times, but I understand that this is a setup book. It's the beginning of a trilogy. It's the first book in a trilogy. So it is a lot of setup and a lot of like preparing you by getting you to know the characters in the book. Like, the plot just doesn't, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand the motivations for any of the characters at this point. But that's not to say that I don't like it, because I am enjoying it and I am reading it fairly quickly. Like, it's a relatively easy read if you can kind of just like ignore the fact that you have no idea what's going on. Does that make any sense? Like, it doesn't sound very fun to be reading a book where you have no idea what's happening, but I think when it comes to fantasy and like relatively high fantasy books like this, there's always a little bit of that like read and find out sort of element. I know Brandon Sanderson specifically talks about that a lot in his books. And like this really is nothing like The Way of Kings or the Stormlight Archive whatsoever. I'm just referring to that because it reminds me of that sort of storytelling where it's purposeful. You're not supposed to really know what's going on until it all gets wrapped up and it all makes sense. I feel like my thoughts are going to be kind of all over the place with this book because it's not like I can explain the plot and how I feel about the plot because I don't know the plot. I don't know what's going on. I like that this is supposed to be a dark fantasy, but it does still have some like aspects of humor in it. Joe Abercrombie sprinkles humor in there, and it's in like a grim, sort of dry humor sort of way, so I am liking that as well.
What we need to do is we need to find a way forward. We can't just sit at the bottom. Now we got a whole new revolution.
The big people are about to get ate by the piranhas.
All right, as you can see, I just finished watching the most recent episode of Survivor that aired, what is it today? Today's the 8th, but it aired last night on May 7th. So I'll put a timestamp on the screen here if you want to skip through me talking about Survivor, but I just feel like I need to talk about it for a minute because we're getting down to the wire. I think we just got to the final, how many people are there? There's Eva, Joe, Shaheen, Mitch, Camila, and Kyle, and Mary. And Mary just went home. So we're down to the final 6 now. And honestly, this episode was a little bit anticlimactic. I'm a fan of Joe and Eva. I like them. I like that they're going for that more, like, moral, loyal aspect of the game. And I like them as people. I think they're cool people. So as much as I would have been upset if Joe had gone home, I also think it would have been a lot more entertaining to watch. Because they ended up just sending Mary home, which was kind of just the obvious choice. And I feel like Camila and Kyle, that kind of would have been the tribal council to make their move against Joe. Like, I'm not really sure why they decided not to go for Joe, because now at this point, I think it's kind of going to start to feel like Joe and Eva and then the remaining 4. So really, like, if Camila and Kyle do it properly, if they can keep their relationship a secret, they could get, maybe not Eva, because Eva has like 1,000,001 idols, but, and like, this would have been their opportunity to vote out Joe because he didn't win immunity, and now he has the opportunity to go and win more immunity challenges. So I'm not sure why they didn't vote him off, to be honest. But if Shaheen, Mitch, Kyle, and Camila can all work together, then they could easily get Joe out if he doesn't win an immunity challenge. And if they do it properly, they might even be able to get Eva to use her idol or her idols. I think she has 2 of them, but I thought that one of them had to be used when it was the final 7, and now it's the final 6. So I'm not sure if she can still use that one anymore. They didn't mention it, so. But anyways, I think it's interesting that they went for the kind of obvious choice, because at some point, they could have gotten Mary out. Would Mary have been that bad of a choice to have at the final 3? Because sometimes you want to keep someone around that you think would be good to sit next to for the jury to, like, not vote for, if that makes sense. Like, I Anyways, very interesting. I am excited to see how the rest of the season goes. As much as I love Joe and Eva, I think they have huge targets on their back. And I think if Kyle and Camila do it properly, I think both of them could be sitting in the final 3. At this point, I think Joe and Eva are too much of threats. They'll probably have targets on their back until the end. Mitch is probably the next, like, easy vote. I love Mitch as well. I would love to see him win, honestly. Mitch has a little bit of a target on his back because he's good enough in challenges that if you get him in the right challenge, he might be able to win immunity. But aside from that, if you have Mitch in the final 3 sitting next to you, he's probably going to win. Like, he's just such a likable person. I don't think anyone had any issues with him, except for Star. I don't know if Star liked Mitch all that much. But everyone else seemed to love him, and he's just such a nice guy. He has a good story. He was good enough in the challenges. I think his one downfall would be that he wasn't, like, he didn't play the game all that hard. Like, if you're going by the whole outwit, outlast, outplay thing, like, he didn't really outwit anyone. He didn't make any big moves strategy-wise in the game. Ultimately, I think as much as I would love Joe, Eva, or Mitch to win, I don't think any of them will, because I think they'll get voted out because they have targets on their back. So I honestly think that it could end up being Camila, Kyle, and Shaheen at the end, which would be interesting. At that point, I feel like it would be anyone's game. Like, I don't know who out of those 3 would end up getting the most votes. And I would also wonder at that point, when they go to, like, make their case to the jury of who should win, I wonder if Camila and Kyle would come out about their secret alliance. I don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because not a lot of people that I know are watching Survivor right now. Like, they might have in the past, but they're not currently watching this season. My mom is, so I'm going to probably talk to her about it a little bit later, but no one else really watches Survivor, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So I finally finished The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I don't know what I think about it, to be honest. I think I'm just so used to fantasy books having such a specific plot. It's very clear that this book was written knowing that it was going to be the first book in a series or in a trilogy. Like, it wasn't written as, oh, I'm going to write this first book and we'll see if it turns into anything. It was written knowing that this was going to be the first book in a series. That being said, like, the actual writing itself was gripping enough to keep me reading until the end. There were parts where I feel like I read a whole chapter, or I read a few pages or a few paragraphs, and I had to go back and reread it because I was just like zoning out at a certain point. And that's happened to me with a couple other books. One of them that I can think of was the first book in the Red Rising series. And it was one of those things where I just felt like some stuff just went over my head a little bit. And I think that's because there wasn't a plot to follow along with in this book. But the characters had enough, like, complexity, I think, that it kept me interested in what was going on. And now getting to the end of the book, I still want to continue on with the series, because now that I've learned about the characters and I've learned where they've come from and how they all came together, the next book is going to be where they actually go out and continue on with the plot. Basically, like, the end of this book set up the characters to go on this sort of quest, I guess. So I think the next book in the trilogy is going to be where the plot really starts to kick in and you actually get, like, more of the character arcs and whatnot, because I wouldn't say that the characters are necessarily super likable. Like, I don't necessarily love any of them, but they all have their different quirks. They all have totally different personalities, so it'll be interesting to see how their personalities develop throughout the rest of the series. But yeah, I don't even know what I'm gonna rate this book. I'll have to sit on it a little bit, I think, before I actually give it a rating. But I'm done reading it. It took me quite a bit longer than I was anticipating, probably because I did have to kind of read it slower to actually absorb what was going on. But I do want to pick up another book now. I actually really want to pick up Holly by Stephen King, because I really want to read another Stephen King book. It's been a while. But first, I actually have to read the short story in If It Bleeds. This whole novel is a novel of different short stories from Stephen King, and the one that's titled after the name of the book, If It Bleeds, includes the character Holly, who is the main character, obviously, in this book. So I just have to read the short story in this one first before I go into this one. I don't think I have to, but this came out before Holly, so I would like to read the short story first. So that's my plan. That's what I'm going to do. And then once I finish the short story, I'm just going to jump straight into Holly. All right, it is a couple days later, but I did finish the short story in this book called If It Bleeds. And honestly, it's so nice to be back in a Stephen King book. I feel like every time I read one of his books and then take a break between his books, I forget how much I love his writing. Like, it's almost comforting in a weird way. Like, I'm just so used to kind of how he sets plots up now. And it's just, I don't know. I almost feel like Stephen King is a comfort author for me, which is weird because obviously he tends to write more thriller, horror based books. But there's just something about them that I absolutely love. So I finished that short story and then went straight into Holly. I just started this one today, so I'm only on page 75. But I've been reading this and listening to the audiobook of it while I'm actually making some banana bread, which I'll show you when it comes out of the oven. But yeah, I think I mentioned when I started If It Bleeds that I wasn't sure if I had to read it, and I probably didn't necessarily have to read it, but already there are some kind of mentions of the short story in Holly, so it just adds that extra bit of sort of background knowledge and whatnot. But yeah, I will say it's interesting because this book was, when was it actually released? 2023. So it came out in 2023, and it's based in mostly the year 2021. So there's actually a lot of like COVID related stuff in this book. And I think Stephen King actually wrote like an author's note that's in the end of it that kind of talks a little bit about why he actually felt like he wanted to include COVID and stuff. And I know some people have negative thoughts about COVID being a plot point in books nowadays. I can't say that I've read all that many that involve it, but the couple that I have read, I think they were done in good enough ways that it didn't really bother me. Like, it didn't give me trauma or anything. But I also don't know what it adds to the story in this case. I imagine that it will have some sort of significance, because otherwise why bother including it if you don't need to? Like, it's fiction. Like, he doesn't have to talk about real life stuff if he doesn't want to. So yeah, I'm interested to see what significance COVID has to the story. And I'm also interested because if you know anything about the character Holly Gibney, in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy that she originally showed up in, like obviously that trilogy was about the same sort of characters and the same antagonist and whatnot. And then as you move into The Outsider, there's again sort of one-ish antagonist. And then in the short story If It Bleeds, that's actually more so connected to The Outsider in a way. If you've read the books, you know what I'm talking about, but I'm trying not to spoil anything. But then as we move into the newest one, Holly, I think, I mean, obviously I'm only 75 pages in, so I guess we'll see, but I think it's a whole separate sort of storyline with a separate antagonist and everything, so I'm interested to see what this one is going to be about. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I just like the way that Stephen King puts stories together. On one hand, it's not like it's on the edge of my seat because it's suspenseful and I'm tense, but at the same time, it does have me wanting to keep reading, and it does, like, it feels page turning, and it does kind of have me on the edge of my seat because I want to know what's going to happen next. And honestly, it's been a while since I've read a book that's made me feel like that. I kind of feel like I've been in a bit of a book slump that I didn't even know I was in. I just haven't been reading as quickly as I'm used to the last like couple months. I think that's because I haven't really read, like, I've read some really good books, but I haven't read a book that's like, okay, when I'm not reading it, I'm thinking about it and I want to go back and read it. But I kind of am with this book, and again, I think that's just a testament to Stephen King being one of those, like, he's an auto-buy author for me now. He's a comfort author. Like, anyways, I could talk for days, but yeah, just wanted to give you guys an update on Holly. I'm going to get back to reading now while I wait for my banana bread to come out of the oven, and then I will show you what that looks like because I can smell it and it smells so good.